If you don't know what a homily is, it's basically not a sermon, and it's short. Although, because you're masked, I can't see the look of fear on your face when you see the bishop get up and then go, no, he's going to preach at us. For full transparency, I chair the board of the Together initiative, which was behind the Thank You Day and a lot of other initiatives that are going around. And at one of our early meetings, I had in my head, don't ask me why, because I don't like the bloke. I don't mind him, I don't like his music. Elton John. Sorry is the hardest word, because I don't think it is. I think thank you are the hardest words, because to say thank you means to admit need. It means to own up to the need of other people, of someone else, to make up for a lack in oneself. So I think thank you are the hardest words. And in the reading we had, which you can see on page 5 if you wish, we have to remember that Luke was almost certainly a medical doctor. And in his gospel, there are lots of elements of the gospel that indicate this particular expertise and interest. So when he tells the story of people who are sick, then the details matter. And in this story, we have echoes of COVID, or our experience of COVID. Here we have 10 people, 10 among many, who suffer from the skin disease, usually called leprosy. They also live in an area of racial tension between Samaria and Galilee, where there is conflict between the two groups of people who live there, for a host of reasons, some of which were religious. So in this tense territory, we find that 10 of these lepers are cured, they're healed of their disease. And 9 of them go back to their regular business. In other words, they've achieved what they didn't earn or expect, but very quickly move on with the business of life. And they forget that thank you are maybe the hardest but the most liberating words. And the one who does remember that he was in need and that this need was met not according to his achievement, but by generosity, or what we call grace, then he comes back with gratitude. And it says, and he was a Samaritan. He was the one least expected. And maybe because of the tensions with which he and others lived, maybe he was used to being put down by the locals, but he was the one who knew his need and therefore said thank you. The reason I say that there's an echo here of COVID is because leprosy, or what was known as leprosy, was indiscriminate. It didn't just pick on the Galileans. It didn't just pick on the Samaritans. Anyone could get it. It was indiscriminate in that sense. And one of the things we've learned through the COVID experience is that viruses only have one job, really, don't they? It's to replicate themselves and keep going. They have no other raison d'etre. And so they don't have to respect the things that human beings, or the choices or the values that we would espouse. And some of the language we've seen used during the last 18 months is just mad. As if the virus was something you could defeat. You could beat it. You could send it packing. It's a virus. It's not a person. whom you can attack. And therefore, regardless of all the other tensions in life, or the mixed experiences, or the different origins of the people who get the disease, they have a common need. And their common need had to be met by whoever was around. Jesus wouldn't have been the first choice of any indebtedness by some of these people. But when you're desperate, you take what you can get. So what we take from this, one of the things we take from this, is firstly the need for us to say thank you. Because in saying thank you, there is liberation and there is joy. Because we all own up to our common need. You know, I was listening to the choir thinking, in the light of what Paul Whitaker was saying, that here you've got a group of people who are not singing the same thing. They're singing different lines. Sometimes the words not at the same time. But you put it together and it forms a harmony that is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what I think Paul was describing about the way people worked in the hospital. They didn't work to rule. They filled the need and therefore recognized the need of colleagues, not just of those who are suffering, which is something we must not lose. It's also something we must not abuse or misuse. So on behalf of the Church, and the Church of England exists for the sake of the world out there, for the sake of its community, not for its own sake. That's why we convene this sort of thing in this space. It's why the Dean began the service by welcoming you to your cathedral. It's not ours. It belongs to the world out there. But this is why we say thank you to everyone who pulled their weight during the pandemic. I'm married to a nurse as well. Because everyone had to play their bit. And no bit is more valuable than any other bit. Because together we were backing each other up, and together we were learning. And together we knew our need and our lack, and were able to say thank you to one another out of joy and out of a sense of generosity and grace. And that's it. I trust that gratitude will form part of our overt vocabulary as we begin one day to emerge. We're not there yet. But as we emerge into a reshaped world, we might need to relearn what it is to say thank you to God and know our dependence as mortal human beings in a contingent world. You can't buy life. And so that gratitude might be part of our common vocabulary, no longer the hardest words, but the best words that bring us together and set us free when we have to do it all again. So I pray that God will bless this wonderful city, those who work in all its various sectors, business sector, the voluntary sector, the religious, the faith sectors, the health, education, which has taken such a hit. And that together, as we hear the words of thanks, we will be able to offer them to others and recognize our need. So may God bless us all, whatever we do, wherever we are, as we pilgrimage on together into the uncertain and unknown future, knowing that the God who calls us always equips us and never forsakes us, even through sickness and death and beyond. Amen.